Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And as an outbreak of a terrible disease is possibly threatening the entire universe, we're here for the market though, so we're gonna jump in as soon as possible. Still, lore-wise, a lot of interesting things are happening. I do wonder which direction CCP is going to go with that outbreak of a very deadly disease that's almost unstoppable. And that could even possibly threaten us capsuleers, because it basically would be something that would get copied over if we would use a jump cloner, or if we would die and then have our consciousness transferred to a different clone. So could be very interesting. We will see how all of that is going to develop. Of course, we're here for the market, so as always we are going to jump in on plex at 1 minute. 100, and we can see that plex are down just a little bit, but they're still at 1,071,000,000 for the sellers and at 1,020,000,000 for the buyers here in Jita. So price wise, historically, we're in the middle between the latest low point and the latest high point, and we're just basically hovering at this price range for now. I know that there's like another action. I think if you buy plex you get the extra skins or something like that at the moment, so that can possibly explain the slight uptick in volume and then the slight downtick here on prices, but so far it really doesn't look like there's any sustained movement either way. We're basically hesitating and staying at the current price range just above 1 billion ISK. It's going to be interesting to see which way we're actually going. Taking a quick look at the perimeter market, we can see that of course the volumes over there are quite sizable, and we go down from 1,070,000,000 to 1,042,000,000 for the sellers, and if you go to the buyers, they go up to 1,028,000,000. So there's a slight bit of money to be made if you're buying a plex from the perimeter trade hubs, but overall the gap isn't that large. We've seen it being larger, and at the moment I really do feel like plex is just not going anywhere. Over the course of the next few months, it's all going to depend on FanFest. I think basically what kind of announcements can CCP make up to FanFest and at FanFest itself. Is that going to be able to rekindle people for a summer release somewhere or something like that? If not, then I do think we will start to see plex go under pressure a little bit. Multiple pilot training certificate, very similar chart here. You can see that at the tail end on the 5-day moving average, we're basically flat. The sellers are at 1,082,000,000 and the buyers at 1 billion, so a bit more margin. It's of course also a much smaller market with volumes just in the 20s every single day. Pilot body resculpt next, a bit more movement here, back up in the last few weeks or so to 280 million. Volumes wise though, completely abysmal, just a couple a day, mostly less than 10. 294 million for the sellers, 265 million for the buyers. Fresh sellers, there are some coming in, right? Like almost 10 of them, which would be a full day supply in the last 24 hours, but they're definitely point whining each other at the current price range. They're not willing to go below 290 million anymore, so that's the slight uptick right here, and the competition is basically at the 294 million price mark. Next up, skill extractors. Of course, following the plex market very closely, because you need to basically convert plex to Aurum and then purchase the skill extractors, so it's tied 1-to-1 almost. And very similar chart here once again, somewhere in between the previous bottom and peak. We are currently meandering at the current price range, which is for the sellers 247 million ISK and for the buyers 236 million ISK. So margin wise, it's definitely less than 10%, so it's not that much. And well, it's basically an average price where we're settling. It all depends on plex. whether or not skill extractors are going to move from here. Skill injectors could be more interesting. It definitely is. Look at that, taking off quite nicely. Coming off of a high point here, we had a day with, if I can grab it, 670 million, a 1-year high as well. That is quite interesting. So there must have been some pretty strong demand. You don't notice it in the volumes that much, except of course since the Ascension expansion, trade volumes in general have gone up from, let's say, less than 5,000 to 5,000, and then now at around 7,500 on average on a good day. So we definitely see higher trade volumes, and in the latest few weeks here we see a 1-year high, which we're probably coming off from. But renewed interest in skill injectors. So 660 million is someone coming in with 62 of them just a couple minutes ago, like half an hour ago. And what was the high point here? Let's take a quick look. 670. So yeah, fresh supply is coming in. You can also see 32, 15, 18, 16, 62 as the latest ones. Fresh supply is coming in, trying to take advantage of those higher prices. So we're going to go down a little bit, but we're definitely in very good price territory for the skill injectors. 660 million for the sellers, 638 million for the buyers. If I take a look at perimeter here, yeah, volumes, well, they're actually pretty decent as well. And they're going as low as 645 million ISK. If we look at fresh supply in Jita itself, more than a full front page, several hundred skill injectors coming in here. So quite interesting. The demand for skill points seems to have shot up here all of a sudden, and we just recovering from a 1-year high of skill injectors. So if you've invested in those at price ranges below 600 million, you might want to look into trying to take a little bit of profit. But the bottom price right here was 560 million. So this is definitely a chart that probably looks a bit more violent than it actually is, because the range here is not that big percentage wise. But yeah, skill injectors, if you've bought at the right times, this could be your time to sell for some profit. Next up, we're moving on to some minerals. That's going to be at 705. There we go, like that. For titanium, quite interesting. You may have already seen it on the bottom ticker. We're back up above 4 ISK for the sellers, 398 for the buyers, so tiny margin, almost nothing anymore. The one worrying thing is this here, 1.1 billion, 1.6 billion at 405, at 404, competing with each other with pretty damn big numbers. Volume wise is not going to help titanium recover, but at least we came back just a little bit here towards 4 ISK once again. So hopefully this 385 from last week will turn out to be the bottom. We can also see that volumes shot up here, so I do think that at this point investors said we can buy titanium for less than 4 ISK straight from the sellers. I think we should consider buying those, and I've been a part of that for just a couple 100 million, not a lot, but I did place I think an opportunistic buy order between the sellers and the buyers, and I picked up a little bit of that very cheap titanium right here, which I think in the next few months will be alright, especially if we actually see some destruction come back into the game. So a little bit of a turnaround point, but I think it may mean nothing more than a bottom forming. We may be around the 4 ISK bar area for titanium in the foreseeable future. It's definitely a possibility. We'll see if this will turn out to just be a reaction on the violence of the downturn here in the last few weeks. If that happens, we may go for even lower prices. It could be interesting. As someone looked it up on the previous video, I think at one point titanium in 2008 went to as low as 285. So it's not exactly historically unheard of, but 2008 was before my time in EV even. So yeah, historically speaking, we've been lower, but this does feel like it's extremely low already. Next up, we've got pyrite. That could be an indication, of course. Pyrite closely decently similar to titanium in the way you get it and where it comes from. And here, unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any end to the bad news. We're continuing to go down despite volume records being broken as well. 1-year low point. Currently, pyrite selling for 577. The bars are at 556. sizable fresh orders of billion units at 594. Here we still have almost a billion units coming in at 585. Then we've got 300 million, well, 258 million at 578, another 200 million at 577. So yeah, there is still more supply than demand here. Pyrite going for that 1 year low without stopping, just basically blasting through 7 ISK, through 6 ISK, all of those possible psychological barriers where traders could say, you know what, anything below that, we're gonna pick that up. Nope, it's just not happening. We're going lower and lower. Right now, we're gonna test 5.5, right, on the sellers, on the buyers, the first one. There's a couple of orders at 556, but then we're at 5.5. If that somehow gets filled, fresh supply keeps coming at this pace, then the buyers are going to go below 5.5, and then, well, it could be another downfall even lower. So we will see. Titanium could be the first indication of bottoms forming. Pyrite could be the indication that we're going to go even lower. We will see. Mexalon could be interesting, the only one that was managing to hold on decently well. Around 70 to 75 is definitely a good price, historically speaking, for Mexalon. Definitely compared to the other high-sec minerals here. We do see that we have to give ground a little bit. We're trying to stay above 70 ISK, but can we succeed? 71 for the sellers, 68.65 for the buyers. Supply here, full front page pretty much of fresh supply going from 72 to 71 ISK. That is decently large, so you can see that we are under pressure because of, well, the general depression in the high-sec mineral market. So I wouldn't be surprised that at some point we'll break down and go below 70 ISK, but this is still alright. This is the one hope, the one spot of light for high-sec miners, is you can still go for Mexalon and you can still turn your efforts into decent amount of ISK when it comes to this mineral. The other ones, honestly, I'm stacking them up and I'm not selling them. So that is just the way I'm looking at mining at the moment. Finally, for high-sec minerals, we've got Isogen. Again, no break in the downtrend here. That's just really bad. We're now going below 50. Are we? Definitely looks like it. Another huge volume. That should be a dump considering the downward spiral right here. 45.9 for the sellers, 44.6 for the buyers. Very small margin again, so we could be close to the bottom. But of course, the worrying thing is that we're still going from 46.3 for the sell order, the earliest in the last 24 hours, then down to 45.9. So we're still trying to get rid of our Isogen at lower and lower prices here. Supply wise, 10 million, 24 million, 5 million. On the buyer side, 1 million, almost a million, 4 million, but that's already, no, that's within 24 hours. But you can see that we have to go down to 40 ISK for 84 million on the buyer side of things, which is, well, pretty damn low. 1 year low for Isogen here. You know, you could once again, if you believe that this is not structural, that this could somehow come back, you could start purchasing in small numbers, because this chart is, I mean, this is less than half. This is the lost 50% of its price, so the potential upswing could be up to 100% if we can get back to 100 ISK at some point. So I think that this is very, very interesting. It's decently risky because mining has been changed substantially because of the Rorcal changes. The Orca actually does mine really well in relative safety, right? You have that much more HP, that a gank is that much more difficult, that much less likely. So I do think that there is more supply in the game at the moment. The question is, can we somehow find activities where we can come back from that, and can we see these high-sec minerals come back towards their previous price points? Then of course these are investments that we should look into. But I understand the risk. Nobody wants to catch a falling knife. Still, when it comes to psychology, one thing that I'm starting to learn when it comes to EVE Online is that yeah, sometimes you have to put that fear aside and you have to decide, well, you know, this is crazy, 1 year low, never seen that before. I should definitely make my move on that and then be patient. Noxium also still going down, but hesitating at the tail end here. We can definitely see that the median daily prices are not continuing their fall down for Noxium that much. So Noxium is selling for 318 ISK You know, 1100 ISK used to be a normal price for Noxium, so that's several years ago, but you know, that's just to give you guys a bit of perspective. 306 for the buyers as well. The margin is closing here too, so I'm personally hoping that we are starting to form a bottom, but yeah, I can't guarantee that we actually are. Next up for Nullsec, we've got Zydrine continuing the correction after the lovely build up to 1300 ISK. That took maybe 1.5 months, then now 1.5 months later, we're back down. This price range could be interesting for the buyer side of things, which would be around, let's see if we can actually get a bar here, a little bit above 900 ISK. And the buyers are at 985, the sellers are at 1018 ISK. Again, margin closing. So if you're reading this as a bottom forming in general, then I think Zydrine could be the one that you might want to speculate on if you're looking to gamble for the shorter term, right? The high-sec minerals, they're not going to make an immediate comeback all of a sudden, but we can see that Zydrine had a little bit of violence, and a play from 900 or 1000 to 1300 may not be impossible. So this one, if you're feeling more risky, but if you're looking for that return on investment in a mineral that might be sooner, then I think Zydrine could be the one to look at. Megasite should also be giving ground. Nope, actually managing to stay at 1500 decently well. A little bit of a swing, of course, sometimes a bit below that, sometimes a bit above that. We're on the downswing again here at the end, but doing decently well. 1454 for the sellers, 1450 for the buyers, no margin. So basically in the last 24 hours, or maybe in the last 2 days, yeah, from almost 1500 here, look at that, they've been plugging more Megasite at substantially lower prices. But if you can get rid of that 2 million and the rest of this, we're back at 1500. So if supply doesn't come in all that much, we could swing back to 1500 again. And all of this is just action in the last 2 days that could be purchasable if you think Megasite at 1500 is a decent purchase. Of course, from this chart, it's not. But it shows the discrepancy between Zydrine and Megasite, whereas Zydrine has given back all of its gains pretty much, and I would almost consider this a buy opportunity, because you can buy Zydrine for less than 1000 ISK, possibly sell it at 1300 in the future. When it comes to Megasite, we're definitely still at the 1500 high point of the year, and it's managing to stay that. So this for me is a strong indication that all of these problems that we're seeing, such as titanium, pyrite and isogen, you know, there may be a bit more to it than just, well, people are mining that much more all of a sudden. Mexalon here, for instance, is also that outlier that does something completely different, and shows that there may be, it may not be only a structural problem when it comes to these extremely low mineral prices. Finally, we've got Morphite also giving ground a little bit, although a bit more slowly. We were bottom less than 9,000 or around 9,000, and here we had a peak at around 1100, I think, yeah, a bit above that. Now we're back down to 9,800, so the sellers are below 10,000 ISK. This is considered, historically speaking, to be very interesting for investment purposes, right? Buy some Morphite for 9,400, 9,500. Selling at 11k is not impossible. So again, Morphite under pressure after, just like Zydrine, a bit of a push up, and back into decently interesting territory for purchasing possibility, I think. But yeah, it's true that it remains a big gamble, and we basically need something major to happen with a lot of destruction all of a sudden in order to see an actual sharp change in the mineral market, I think. Next up, we've got PI at 1835. Okay, let's go over these. Actually, I was gonna say I don't expect, considering that plex is so flat and the mineral market is basically doing the same, which is an indication of either a lot of activity in mining or not that much activity in general, like a lot of destruction. I thought we would not move a lot, but here we can see that construction blocks, interestingly enough, are up a little bit from, I would say, average prices, 12.3, 12.4k, back up to above average prices. 13.29 is definitely above average, which is what they're selling at the moment. 13,300 ISK. Buyers at 12,000 ISK is probably a little bit below average, but the spread has increased here, so a bit of extra demand apparently. Maybe this volume right here caused construction blocks to come back in decently good sell order territory. So if you want to get rid of your construction blocks, you might want to look into that at the moment. Consumer electronics here basically crawling from out of the hole. It did so last week already. It's basically now staying at the current price range of a little bit below 12k, which is a little bit below average, unfortunately. So for consumer electronics, trying to sell for 12,754 is probably right on the money, but you're buying below average at 10,900. And so I would say for consumer electronics, if you have to get rid of it, I think it's okay to do it, but then be patient and put it up for sell orders. But if you can afford to be patient in general, then I would say you might want to wait for a better opportunity, considering that we're still selling below 13k and 14.15 is definitely not outside of the norm for consumer electronics. Coolants was at a 1-year high. Of course, at some point the party has to end, so we're giving back a little bit of ground here, probably on a decent amount of fresh supply. Yeah, we can also see that it's pretty violent. So in the last few days, this is like 4 days ago, we were still at 15,800, but then people are coming in with 44k, 77k, decent volumes, 100,000 here as well, and they're quickly going down from 15,800 to 15,000, then 14,900, 14,300, and now 14,200, the latest sell order. So it's basically new supply of people spotting that opportunity to sell coolants for a really good price, and they're basically I want to sell and undercutting each other in pretty big margins. So a surge in demand could turn this around all of a sudden, but I don't think it's going to happen, considering that we're still well above average when it comes to selling your coolant. So all of these people that are impatient basically when it comes to these sell orders, they're still selling at a much better price than what they can normally sell coolants at. So it's definitely understandable. Enriched uranium next, also continuing its crawl back from close to a buy opportunity, not a 1-year bottom, but it was definitely a serious pullback towards 12,000 ISK. Now we're coming back. I would put this at slightly above average. Sellers at 15,600 is definitely above average. 14,500 for the buyers as well. I think that's a little bit above average. So enriched uranium, doing pretty well at the moment, and it's a good time to sell this. Mechanical parts managing to hold on decently well at its 1-year high at the moment, so fresh supply is not undercutting all that much, although it's starting. Basically the chart still has to catch up on that a little bit, because you can see here now that in the last few days we're going from 17,000, then 16,000, then 15,000. Well, we're just skipping that, 16 to 14,500, and it's still coming in decently well. So in the last 3 days we've basically been bringing mechanical parts down. The bars are still at 13,700, so we're still selling above average, but we're definitely going back towards the range here, 13 to 14k on average, pretty quickly here. The chart still has to catch up. That's basically what's happening. And yeah, of course, 1-year high at some point that is going to end as well. And you know, if you believe that, yeah, at some point a 1-year high has to end, then at some point a 1-year low should end as well. So I'm looking at you minerals. God damn it, form those bottoms. Oxygen here managing to stay close to 500 ISK, so also a bit of a comeback since the beginning of the year. I would say that this is looking okay, a little bit above average. 520 for the sellers, 482 for the buyers. Yeah, a little bit above average, okay to sell. 450 would probably be the average price. And as a result here, you're not making huge money on oxygen. It's also, of course, only a processed planetary material, very easy to make in large volumes, but there seems to be decent demand at the moment. Robotics next. Okay, not exactly reaching the 1-year high, but staying well above average. Are the sellers still at above 100,000 ISK? Yes, they are. They climbed, in fact, a little bit. Last week we were at 101,000. Now we're at 110,000 ISK for the sellers, 99,500 for the buyers as well. So this is definitely a good price for robotics, staying decently strong after the comeback from, I would say, average prices to 100,000 ISK at the beginning of the year again. So yeah, very nice start of the year here. Rocket Fuel, that had a very boring year, also jumped up and still manages to stay there, with including one day where the average price, if I could grab you, went as high as 15,500 ISK compared to the boring average of 12,000 ISK that we had the entire year. That's definitely a good deal. Yeah, empty. Look at that, just completely empty. 15,500 for the sellers, 13,300 for the buyers. Lack of supply is causing Rocket Fuels to be selling at a really high price. So I think we'll see people start to switch back to that. It may be that because of the very boring year, a lot of people just didn't make a lot of rocket fuel anymore. Definitely no new planets would be making rocket fuel. If you're looking at the chart here in September, October, all of that, you know, it seems too boring. You've got much better summer strong PI materials to make. So I think that, you know, we could be here for a while until producers actually get back to their rocket fuel planets. Self-harmonizing power cores, a little bit of a surprise jump here after going down to 2 million. So on a volume spike, we're back up a little bit. Currently selling for 2.2 million. Buyers are at 2.16 million. Very close margin here as well. So must have been a pretty major purchase, maybe for something like an Excel or something like that. I think that's definitely possible. We'll see if the pressure comes back in the next few weeks. I suspect that it will. So I think that basically this is just a major purchase for maybe an Excel Citadel, something like that, that disrupts the downward pattern of self-harmonizing power cores. Could be speculation on the drilling rigs, but I think it's a little bit too early to jump in on that already, because I don't suspect we'll get any actual information before FanFest. Superconductors here holding at average prices, maybe a little bit above average, 14k. 15,400 for the sellers, definitely above average, but 13,400 for the buyers, probably an average buy price. So as a result, we're a bit above that, but the spread is much larger than in some of the others. So it's okay to sell, but be patient on that. Put it on a sell order. Test cultures next. So we had to give ground again. Yeah, decently violent chart. 2 peaks to 15,000 ISK this year, and 3 bottoms, you could say, at 7,500 ISK. 3 great buy opportunities. That's double the price here. So this is actually a chart that looks violent and that is decently violent as well. On both of these slopes here, you could have made a lot of money. Now we're back down. Well, we're not, 8,700 on average. Question is, where are the buyers at? 8,900, so they're still a little bit higher than I would like to see them, but with supply coming in and going below 10,000 ISK, I do feel like this culture is under pressure. If you want to risk a buy in PI, this would be my gamble. If you're very patient, you might want to wait for buy orders to go below 8,000 ISK, but still, 15,000 twice last year. It should give you an indication that 9,000 may not be such a bad purchase. Wetware mainframes, finally, that one is continuing its slow downtrend since the Ascension expansion. And here we have 2.7 million for the sellers, 2.6 million for the buyers. Also decently close margin, but decently high volumes here. So all of this is in the last 24 hours. And that should put a little bit of pressure on that. Still in the last 24 hours here. Practically 2 front pages, starting with 1,000 here, 1,000 here. This is quite a lot. That is not going to be absorbed all that easily by the market. I think this is going to put a little bit of pressure on wetware mainframes as well. Quite interesting to see this. A big purchase in self-harmonizing power cores, and then a lot of supply in the last 24 hours on wetware mainframes. Could be interesting, but I think it's never good news for the price. So that was PI. Next up, we have some Tech 1 chips. That's going to be 2850. Okay. Here, well, to be honest, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff here. The Isaac minerals are still going lower and lower, so I suspect that basically we're still in the very cheap Tech 1 chip territory. Here is the Apocalypse. You can clearly see that we're trading at current range of 150 to 160, 154 for the sellers. That is interesting. Last week 161, 162. Now we've got a couple of sellers coming in at 155 and 154, and I actually suspect that if you make the mineral calculations on a fully researched blueprint for an apocalypse, that these guys are still making money on that. And 146 million for the buyers. So, you know, historically speaking, almost 200 million for a battleship. Losing a quarter of that price, 20 to 25%, is definitely significant. But I think we can ascribe all of that, or pretty much most of that, to the mineral prices. Arbitrator next, trying to come back a little bit, but having to give ground in the last few weeks as well. Currently selling for 8.3 million. The lack of demand is not going to help. If people calculate that the arbitrator now at current mineral prices costs maybe 7 million or something like that to produce, they're gonna start making this and keep on dumping it to the market, unless of course they can actually spot an opportunity. But here again, Bellicose clearly under pressure, heading towards 1 year low prices again, especially on these median prices. So that means, I think, yeah, new supply is coming in towards 8.2 million, but from time to time someone just dumps a Bellicose for 7 million as well, which is how you get these pretty weird average prices that are close to 7 million. Sometimes that just happens as well. So yeah, the lack of demand here, it's not as pronounced as with the arbitrator, but it's pretty obvious that Tick 1 ships are just so cheap at the moment that no one is all that interested in them. The breacher comes back a little bit on this huge volume spike right here, so a breacher fleet maybe in the making here, and despite that we're not like completely shooting up back above an average price. We're still staying a little bit below average for the breacher. 450,000 for the sellers, 400,000 for the buyers here, and well, the supply that comes in 50, 117. It's pretty easy to produce a frigate as well, of course, and you can see that this one is less below average. It's definitely not as pronounced as with the Apocalypse. That is of course because it's a frigate. It's one of the smallest ships, so you don't need that many minerals, and the impact there, you know, just doesn't show up that much, I think. I also think that in something like the frigates, because it's so cheap and so quick to make, to research, to do, that all the margins are squeezed out of that much more than a battleship, which for instance already costs a 1 billion ISK investment if you want to buy the blueprint original of that. So there's gonna be more competition in the industry, less margins already, and as a result I think that's part of why the lower mineral prices don't give such a pullback in price for the breacher or for the frigates in general. Brutix next, right? Battlecruiser a little bit bigger, tried to come back a little bit, but oh, there's just almost no stopping this. We're below 50 million. Bit of some purchases happening on the Brutix front as well, causing us to go up above 50 million. But yeah, fresh supply is pushing back already. 51 million for the sellers, 45 million for the buyers. So yeah, cheap Brutixes, and some people are definitely buying a decent amount of them. Here's the Catalyst again on a big purchase. We jumped up a little bit, but no stopping the downtrend. We're still heading down below a million. Sellers at coming in below a million with decent volumes as well. 170 right here. 995,000 is 816 for the buyers here. Catalysts under pressure. It's a destroyer again, very easy to make. Not as easy as a frigate, but still very cheap and very fast. And as a result here we see that it's down, it's well below average, but it's not as pronounced as with the Apocalypse again. Cormorant next. We'd have to go like this here to see that once again we're definitely breaking the 125 average million on the downside here. Currently selling for less than a million as well for this destroyer, which is, well, very cheap of course. So if you want to go and buy 100 of these cheap frigates or destroyers, something like that, so you can go out and lose them all in low sec, this is definitely the time to do so. Or 10, you know, a lot of people say 10 is a good number as well to get started, right? To get that feel of PvP and EVE Online. You know, this is a great time if you want to experiment like that. Next up here we got the Crucifier. This is a frigate, much less pronounced when it comes to to the chart here. So we can see that, yeah, we're maybe a little bit below average, but because if you would take June here as the cutoff point, we're basically still at the average with a couple of spikes down a little bit below that. So the Crucifier is holding on, but selling for 300,000 ISK. It's of course already very cheap and there's almost no demand. The Drake battle cruiser, a bit bigger again. Yeah, that intermediate spike does seem to have happened in quite a few of these ships, but here again there's just no stopping it. Averages are going down below 45 million. 45 million for the sellers, 41 million for the buyers. Under pressure, still supply comes in here 2074, so you can clearly see that at the moment you can buy some pretty cheap ships. Here's the Retriever working on a clear 1 year low. That is quite interesting. First leg down after the Ascension expansion, spike here a little bit, maybe the redesign helped, but nope, there's, you know, mineral prices, there's no stopping this, and now 1 year low, clear 1 year low, currently selling for 21 million, you know, 21 million for a Retriever, dirt cheap, and despite that you can still see that 16, 45, 15, people are still just, I want to get rid of these, I want to get rid of these, which is a little bit crazy considering the chart. 20 million for the buyers, so yeah, Retriever market very, very depressed. I think part of this is also the double whammy that people are, for their high-end mining, I think that they're basically moving to Orcas if they're alone, and if not, because you need Orcas. If you're a fleet, you immediately do bring Orcas into the belt. There's no more boosting of grid, and as a result people do move straight to hulks to the best possible yields if they start mining in fleets. I think that basically boosted Retriever fleets, boosted Mackinac fleets that don't have the best yield have been phased out a lot, because the Orca will always be on grid as well to provide the boosts. And finally here we've got the Tempests. Again, we can see that the average used to be, you know, coming from 200 million, 190, 180, but here Ascension expansion down again, that spike back up. Well, it's trying again here, but the averages are all over the place in the last week or so. So the Tempest is selling for 170 million, the buyers are at 151. There's basically not that much being produced and sold at the moment. Volume wise, we're talking not that many ships, less than 20 a day. So the Tempest can swing a bit more wildly just because of very low volumes. So there we go. Yeah, take one. Not a good time to be a producer of those. If you're looking to make the profit right now, of course, if you're looking at a longer horizon, you can buy very cheap minerals, build these ships, and have them be very low cost, and then be patient. So that's a tactic that you could consider considering the current market. Take two next, 37 minutes. Let's move on to see if we can find some speculation. So I think if I would have to give a general picture of the Tech 2 market, some of these smaller ships are coming from surprise spikes, from surprise volatility, but most of them seem to be recovering, and we were basically hunting for some buy opportunities last week. Now here is the Aries. You can see here that we had a little bit of a spike, but I don't like the fact that we're still staying around that 22.5 million mark, when 20 million seems to be the actual bottom. Definitely below 21 million is what we should be hunting for. Well, look at that, bars 19.7 million. So I would say, yeah, the Aries, you could try to pick up a few of those below 20 million. And I think that considering the entire chart, that could actually be a pretty good purchase. So first buy opportunity here. Next up, we've got the Claw. So here we see this volatility here early January. Interestingly enough, we're down to 21 million on average here. We're already back up a little bit. Where are the sellers at 24.5 million? Buyers are at 22.5. So basically you had to make your move last week, which was probably a little bit risky, but you could probably buy close to 20 million, and then now you can already sell at almost 25 million. Could be good, especially if this has some legs for some reason. Then it could be a show of volatility coming back to the Tech 2 markets. Of course, it does seem to be tied to volumes quite strongly, but yeah, this is, the Claw was, I think, in a buy opportunity last week, and now it's already over. The Crow next, again, yep, here, look at that, working on another spike. So last week you could probably have bought them for close to 22 million. 26.5 for the sellers, 25 million for the buyers, showing that volatility on just a couple of days of volumes. Quite interesting in my opinion. But of course, not the time to be buying crows anymore. If you bought some close to 20 million, of course try to set up a good sell order. The Aries next continuing to be quite depressed at a 1-year low here, so if you want the investment to be for the longer term, I think you could look into buying some Aries close to 36 million ISK here, 38.7 for the buyers, but yeah, a chart at 50 million has not been impossible, so this could be a good one, but it's also staying at this price range for well, for almost a month now. Flycatcher next, very difficult to read this chart like this. So that's going to be anomalous. We should definitely not keep that in account. Here, again, the median daily prices all over the place. That makes it pretty risky just because there's almost none of them available here. But the bars being at 49 million ISK on the entire chart here, you can see that 49 million is well below the entire chart. So you could risk some buyers on the flycatcher market. It's just going to be pretty tricky because there is no supply of this one. Heretic next, that's nice. That is actually pretty damn nice because we're definitely playing with the previous bottoms here, which would be 43 million. Here, 45 million. Where are the buyers at? Yep, 42.2 million. If you'd be looking at an investment Heretic, I think you could risk a buy order on that one as well. Here is the Hound next, lovely double spike in the last 2 months here, working its way back down. The question is again, where are the buyers at? We'd be looking at 18 million almost, 18.2 million. The large volumes here, so a lot of seller buy orders still above 18 million, means that you either gamble at this point and try to get in on the action, but you can see that you're not alone here, or you need a lot of patience and want to wait for 18 million to blow over, which I don't think is very likely. So yeah, the Hound showing decent volatility, spikes up to 27 million. If you can now buy it close to 18 million, that's definitely a good deal. It's not exactly pronounced, right? It's not as pronounced as the Heretic, where the buy orders are below the entire chart, for instance. Malediction next, also working its way back down quite nicely. Chart here 20 million, bars 19.9 million. Yeah, you could look into purchasing some Maledictions. One thing to note, of course, is that there's only one spike and it feels decently anomalous, decently strange, unnatural here. So it may not be the best one to gamble on because the volatility isn't as pronounced as, let's say, the Hound, as, let's say, the Claw here. That's a nice spike that lasts a couple of days. This is, you know, market driven with the volumes right there. When it comes to the Malediction, I'm not seeing this one be actually all that healthy, and there may not be as much volatility in the Malediction market. Next up here we've got the Manticore, hesitating a little bit too slowly for my taste, but again two nice spikes and then working its way back down. If we're at like 22 million, yeah, less than 22.5 million, purchasing Manticores may be alright to do as well. Nemesis, that one is crawling back up a little bit and too slowly, so unfortunately no buy opportunity. We'd need to be well below 20 million. We're still at 22, so the Nemesis is a no. Purifier dropping off a little bit, that's quite nice, to 20 million. We would like to see buy orders below 20 million. There's still not. Someone is basically keeping the market from reaching an actual bottom price where investors could try to pick up really cheap purifiers, with 257 of them above 20 million. So if you're patient and you think that there is no immediate risk of huge purchases, then I would say hold off, wait for this one to dry up, and then try to pick them up like 19 million or something like that. That's when you've got the purifiers that make you the real money. Sabers next here, yeah, too much in between. I wouldn't make a move either way here. You'd need to be close to 45 million for the buyers, and we're nowhere near that. So there you go. Yeah, a couple of the frigates do look interesting if you're wanting to place some buy orders, but none of them are really in seller territory. Still the Claw here, trying to take off a little bit, could be an indicator of some volatility to come as well. Next up, Tech 3, 43.50. There we go. We're gonna start with destroyers as always, which are very depressed and basically holding at 29 million because of the huge volumes that still need to be absorbed at this price range. So right now, I think that this can't be all that cost effective. So the way I would look at this is, take your positions to the size that you're comfortable with. I bought a couple, I think 3 of every single tactical destroyer, it's around 100 million each, a little bit less than that. So I kept the investment decently small, but I did buy a couple of those, and we'll see if there is indeed a comeback. Next up here we've got the Hecate, try to come back a little bit, but also depressing back down, selling for 32 million though. So right here it's over, right? You could have bought these Hecates for 29 million in the last 2 weeks or so, but right now you can see that there's still sizable volumes coming in, but they're not dumping below 30 million anymore. So the question is, will this come back at some point? I'm certainly hoping so, but I'm not willing to risk billions of ISK on this either. Here is the Jackdaw selling for less than 29 million. So these are the 2 big volume orders, almost 400 of them that still need to be gotten rid of at 29 million. You can purchase a couple of Jackdaws below that, 25.5 million for the buyers as well. 1 year lows. So again, take your positions to the degree that you're comfortable with. Finally, here we've got a Zweipel. I think that's going to be like the Confessor. Big volumes at 29 million, and they basically still need to get sold. On the cruiser front, let's see if there's anything interesting happening here. We get the Legion continuing its downward trend to a 1 year low of around 130 million. 127 for the sellers, 117 for the buyers for a Legion. These are very cheap Tech 3 ships, to be honest. So yeah, I might, and still a healthy margin of 10 million as well. So I might try to pick up a couple of Legions for less than 120. I think that that cannot be that bad if 150 and 180 can come back in play. Next up here we've got the Loki. Right, the real bottom here at 120, at 110, holy crap, is done. 130 looks to be the average, 132 for the sellers, 125 for the buyers. So yeah, definitely not as good as what I'm seeing for the Legion. Next up here we get the Proteus, also definitely going down, but still at 130, so at 127 for the sellers, 122 for the buyers. So here the buyers are already competing with each other above 120 million. So again, not as good as the Legion, but definitely a 1 year low as well. Finally, here we've got the Tengu that also lost another million on its way down. So the Tengu is selling for 128 as well, and buyers are below 120, which means that I purchased my 1 Tengu that I wanted as an investment at 120 million. So I'm looking for 1 or 2 Legions, I think, here at maybe 117, 118 to make sure that I pick it up. And then, yeah, I'll have taken a couple of positions in the Tech 3 market, and then it's going to be a waiting game until we actually see a bit of a comeback, which I think could happen, to be honest. So quite interesting, in my opinion. Definitely, I would say that these 1 year low price points, if you're looking to invest your ISK, I think those could be interesting. And finally, for the extra product, 3740, I'm going to take a look at advanced moon materials again. The reason for this is that we need to start taking a closer look at those, because this is possibly a market that is going to be disrupted substantially by CCP when it comes to the drilling rigs and the changing of the moon mining materials. So here, very interesting, in the last day we can see the volumes go up. Average price here 171 for crystalline carbide, now selling for 300 already, 176 for the buyers. So yeah, we're basically already too late to buy that very cheap 170 crystalline carbide. Right here, 176. You could still try a couple of buy orders, but this is interesting, right? A couple of big volume spikes and then a move up in price here. Yeah, maybe an indication that some people are doing the same speculation that I'm expecting. Here is fermionic condensates. I have a couple at these very cheap price of 51, also moving their way up. So here we go, 57,000, 54,000 for the sellers, and all of that action since start of February, only in the last 2 weeks. So that is one that I should look at when I'm going to sell my stocks, or I may keep them until the drilling rigs and the moon materials as well. Ferrite carbide is actually at a high point here at around 200 ISK, so it remains a real gamble. 188 for the sellers, 178 for the buyers. It's a bit of a gamble if you're saying I want to purchase this and gamble that everything is going to be up. So this would be my personal last choice, but of course in general we don't know what CCP is planning, and so this is, in my opinion, this could be the gamble of 2017 when it comes to market speculation. Ferrogel is hovering a little bit all over the place, but again I do see some in the last 10 days some bigger volumes pushing the price up towards 13,000 ISK, 32,000 ISK, so 31.6 for the sellers, 30,000 ISK for the buyers, forced up a little bit. Bottoms 25, 27 were not out of the possibilities. Probably a little bit late on ferrogel as well, unless we could see a violent pullback here down, then a new buy opportunity may form itself. So I wouldn't make a move on this one. Fuller rides next. This ride right here, September then to October, is one that I actually got in on last summer. So I spotted this downtrend on fuller rides. I purchased around this price point, and I think I sold around here. So right now we're still staying at 700 ISK. We're slightly under pressure at the tail end. You can see here a slow decrease that seems to be holding and seems to be maintained. The question is, of course, does that mean that fuller rides at 650 are a good purchase? I'm not sure, because, well, the entire chart shows that we have been lower before. So hypersynaptic fibers here, maybe go like this to show a little bit of what was happening. Yeah, I could have purchased in January for less than 8,000 ISK, in fact, now selling for 9,000. Again, apparently a little bit late for the best bottom purchase here, so not exactly sure what to make of that. Nano transistors is quite interesting, also taking off here in the last few days in price. The bottom price in October was around 2,000 ISK, currently selling for 3,000 ISK, so it's still not that great. It's basically a lack of supply a little bit for the nano transistors, and this is interesting that we're seeing a lot of these moon materials go up, some of them on volume, some of them not. But it may just be here at this point that for nano transistors, for instance, a couple of groups that get and produce these are saying, you know what, we're just not gonna put everything on the market anymore. We're gonna start building up some stocks and see if maybe the moon mining changes will make those stocks more valuable, for instance. I think it's definitely possible because it's a pattern that we're seeing here that's happening quite decently. Non-linear metamaterials, I find this one interesting, possibly for a buy opportunity, because we're well below the average of the entire chart here. Currently selling for 18,000, buying for less than 18,000, which on the chart is around here. So I would consider this definitely a possibility for an investment if you want in on the possible moon mining boost. Phenolithic components next. Again, bit of a jump up in the last 2 weeks or so since February. That's quite interesting, from 1500 to 1637, currently selling for 1618. So there is a bit of hesitation. I'm not seeing the volumes here except for maybe here at the tail end. But there may just be some more speculation happening here than what I thought. Photonic metamaterials going back down towards definitely a below average price. Buyers well below 10k. This is another one that I might want to put in a small buy order as well. Plasmonic metamaterials next here. Again, a bit of a spike up here. Went back down, but you can see the volume ticks and then the slight upticks in price here once again. I think that there are a decent amount of buyers taking a closer look at advanced moon materials, and I think that they're right to do so, and I wish we should do so as well if we want to potentially have those huge profits. So here Ceramic fibers, well, of course, we don't like the fact that we're just on the upswing and that we're definitely above average on the chart. So unfortunately here, it was in November that we had to make a purchase. Terahertz Metamaterials next, right on the average. So this again, if you believe that a complete change to the moon mining mechanic is coming and that it's going to cause hell with the prices, then this could be alright because we're right on average for the Terahertz Metamaterials, but it does feel like a bit of a bigger gamble than some of the other ones that are definitely below average to buy at the moment. Titanium carbide, again, right on the average, not a lot of action since the Ascension expansion, so it's up to you to decide whether or not you want in on that. Tungsten carbides, well, down a little bit, so I think we're a bit below average. This one could be interesting if the buy orders are low enough, 138. Yeah. And apparently, considering the average prices here, 141, people do sell to buyers below 140. So this one could be interesting as well, the tungsten carbide. But in general, right now, I would say that I'm seeing some speculation starting in this market, right? This crystalline carbonite. This has to be some people taking positions, the huge volume spikes here causing the increase in price all of a sudden. You know, that pretty much has to be. Some of the other ones where it's like nano transistors, an upswing in basically a couple of weeks that happens that is decently substantial, not on volumes, to me indicates that producers are building stocks of those. So I think that if you're looking for the opportunity and you want that gamble, then start looking at these moon materials now, because those changes are coming. If it's announced at FanFest or a little bit before FanFest, then you're gonna have been too late, right? People will immediately take that information, try to derive whether it's going to mean less or more of these materials, and then the market is going to start correcting like crazy, and some of the buy opportunities, like in my opinion here, the photonic metamaterials that have given back a lot of their ground in the last 2 months, they're gonna be over definitively. You're just not gonna see those back again. It's just going to become impossible to buy this stuff on the cheap anymore. So yeah, I think that this could be interesting, and definitely one of those that I want to keep an eye on in the near future. And basically that's going to be it for this ETH Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.